So welcome everybody at this workshop on festivals and the cities. I will shortly introduce myself. I'm Inge Köstermans. I'm running the Festival Academy, which is an initiative of the European Festivals Association. It's an organization that offers training programs on festival management, both on the artistic and the production side, but I will talk a little bit more about that later. I also want to welcome Kelly, who you all know, I think, in the meantime, from the European Capital of Culture, Jan Grosses, who is running the Festival de Marseille, and Dio Cangelari from the University of Thessaloniki. Welcome. And I want to start actually now with a game. So I would all of you to come up to the stage. Actually, it might be a bit chaotic, and I will explain the game. Let me have a look. So I will put a statement up here, and you see that there are 4 corners where you can choose strongly disagree, disagree, agree, strongly agree. And the rules of the games are simple, so you make a choice. But if you decide, while we talk about it, that you might have changed your mind, you can move. So you don't need to stay in the same position. So I will read the statement. Festivals are more and more becoming tools to promote cities and attract tourism instead of being about art and artists and engaging the citizens. Do you agree? Strongly agree? Disagree? Too conceptual. So in what group are you? Strongly agree. So many of you agree. Take your positions. In the meantime, I go to the lonely, courageous people who disagree. So can you explain why you disagree?
Okay. I don't have a lot of experiences with a lot of festivals, but as concerning Schilia Festival, I disagree for sure, because it's not about tourism and making profit. It's about, it involves local people and some regional artists.
Which festival did you say?
Schilia Festival.
That's a festival you work on?
Yes.
Okay. So let's go to the strongly agree group. You're all in strongly agree or agree? Agree.
So somehow I agree, because where artists are moving, real estate is moving as well. And now we're experiencing, especially in Athens, a new movement of cruel capitalism in real estate. So there is a lot of discourse and dialogue about big sponsors and big museums that actually now, thankfully, started to decline. Major sponsors that are coming from unknown money incomes. So I think what you are trying here with your participatory questionnaire and answering is what we need in the festivals to become a hegemonic narrative. Instead of having a hierarchy in taking decisions, to have an horizontal and grassroots procedure.
Does anybody of the group want to share their...
I just would like to say that when you create tourism, it's about citizens of other cities. So somehow, I mean, the citizens here are citizens from other countries and from other cities. So in my opinion, in this way, you find also a bridge between different cities, different countries, and how you can connect and share information about different civilizations. So, I mean, it's not necessary that when we are talking about tourism that it's something that it's totally bad. It's a way to communicate.
So you're actually more in this group.
But I am in the middle.
Do you agree with what she says?
Yes and no, but I'm not disagreeing or strongly disagree. Disagree with a question mark. okay? Because the question for me is, does festivals and all our big exhibitions, because with the festival I will put biennales and all the rest, are they promoting really a city? Is the city really benefit or needs these blockbusters, if they're still blockbuster exhibitions or events? I'm not sure. I don't think so, actually. What I think is that all these cultural festivals and biennales and all those exhibitions, they say something also different. It's a network between global network. It's a network that comes and goes to different cities, but how do the cities benefit from that, or the festivals are tools to promote the city? I don't think so, that's the only thing. So the question is how having these exhibitions and the networking, as you said, which is grand capitalism again in another form, how the people can really benefit from that. So here comes the question, what kind of events are organized? What kind of cultural events being held in different cities? But definitely all these events promoting a family. It's a network and it's a family that lives usually citizens and cities outside. So, you know, I don't know where to stand. But
It's okay.
But I have a brain of my own.
Yeah. Why do you think that you don't speak? Why do you think that festivals are, or in what way do you think that they are tools for cultural city promotion?
I believe that all the festival, I'm here from a festival that it's a baby festival. It's in a place that culture isn't in the brain of the people. They don't actually use culture for living. They use money and only money for living. So we try to bring a festival in this place, and these 2 years I discover that people need culture, and everyone in this place, in my place, my city, trying to understand what's the connection of these things of culture and life, and that is a new way of thinking and create things.
So you're maybe also more in this group. It's done on purpose. The gap is on purpose. Because you have to take a position. No, but say. Sorry.
I mean, between disagree and agree, there is also a gray zone that now we don't have this option.
Absolutely. You want to add something?
We are not disciplined because we have does exactly that you say. I'm a directress artistic of a festival in Creta, and of course president of Greek Chinese Academy, and so we are very open. It's not a closed festival. We travel everywhere in the world, so they know us now. We have find the roads of the tourism and a little bit of the market for our things, of topical things. So it's so different from the other festival, and I think that we are in the good street. And of course we have we serve the people and the citizens in our town, because then we make documentary production documentary every year with the festival. We call all people, and they are the actors in docudrama documentary. So we have tried many things of this, and assure is a success. And now just we travel after the finish every year of the festival in August. In August, 7 days, is a documentary film festival. You can have audience for 200 film. And then we begin the big travel in the world. This year I was in China. And believe me, it was very interesting because they love our civilization. They like Minoan civilization. And we have a memorandum to work there. Of course, the same thing in Australia. We had the last year, and maybe we will go in Cannes. We have our friends in the Festival of Documentary in the spring. So I think that the best road to have success for a festival, of course, documentary or film or festivities, is to opening, to know you. Who are you? What you want exactly? And of course your identity, because it's very important to have topical identity with or your culture.
Is it possible to have one identity?
We can have more identities of one, but topical identity for the culture is different.
Thank
you.
You
have two identities.
Thank you.
French and Greek, like identity. Yes. But I say for the culture.
We go to the next one. I'm going to skip one. Ethical funding is a luxury for those who have access to resources. Do you know what I mean with ethical funding? No. Yeah, so ethical funding would be like, are you willing to be sponsored by a main industry or Coca-Cola or things like that? Is that ethical? Are there ways of working and producing in third countries, or I don't know, by the industry here or by an oil factory? Or so the question is, ethical funding is a luxury for those who have access to resources. Is it clear like that? Maybe to give an example, you could say, like in a country where there is no public funding at all, that you don't, like Greece, for example, that you don't maybe have a choice and that you rather would take on money from a private funder who you think does not correspond with your values, but which still allows you to make artistic work. So you could think like, I mean, it's a bad to create a good, let's say. A gray zone? You're all in a gray zone? Yes.
I mean, when we talk, ethical in art now is a really big question in general. But when you talk about ethical, what do you mean? Because, for example, it's a different thing to say that you have you get sponsored by a private company that they produce shoes. And it's a different thing to say that, okay, I take money from a company that they produce guns.
Yeah, for example.
But this is, so when you...
or just a company that you know, like, supports warfare in certain areas, or, you know, like...
I think she's asking if the word ethical describes the morals, or you have it in a different context.
It means like if you get sponsorship from a company who has different values from your values.
Yes.
Is it? So it can be Coca-Cola. It can be, I don't know, whatever. It can be.
It's still not be the same.
Then they say maybe ethical. It means that it's ethical laws. So.
Why do you keep on moving?
She thought she was playing another game. The moving game.
I think it's obvious. It's the totally gray zone, this question, yeah. And also, I want to ask something more. Does funding refers to private funding or public funding as well?
It can be also public funding, because there are many governments in many countries who are also unethical. So.
Sorry, for example, in my city, the artists...
Which city?
In Iraklio, in Crete, the artists don't want to get funding from the city. They consider this unethical. It's not Coca-Cola or Soros Foundation.
Yes. Okay. It has to do with the values.
Yes, yes. But,
Great.
but a lot of them have.
Yeah. There is no right and wrong in this exercise. It's just to show a little bit, yes, Jan, how complicated the discussion is, or even the question to how we understand it all. You know, like there is a difference even in reading it. So leave alone starting to talk about this issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to. No, to speak once more for a minute about Dream City in Tunis. Dream City is a festival that is entirely financed, or that needs to be entirely financed from zero for every edition. So between 400 and 600,000 euros need to be raised. And we start from zero, but there is a list of companies and foundations that we will not take money from. And the deal is quite simply that we will never take money from them. And if that means that there are certain artistic projects that we cannot realize, then that is the way it is. But it can easily become complex, because there are, for example, companies or private funders on the blacklist, to put it that way, of whom we think that some of their money comes from arms deals. But if you really think things through radically, then that can go very far, because for the next edition we work with an American artist, and about his project we went to see the US Embassy. Well, the biggest arms dealer in the world is the US government. So where does it stop?
Can we say that all money is dirty money, maybe?
He's like, okay, sorry, but Dassault, okay, is one of the biggest art collectors in France.
Who?
Dassault.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not only the Americans. We are all in the same game.
Not to mention Total.
Oui, Total funds the Louvre. You know?
So we go to the next statement. Good, just in the time. European capitals of culture use culture as a tool and mainly serve the purpose of promoting a city instead of European values. Try to take a position, even only for the fun of it. Maybe Kelly wants to say something, but I will leave maybe somebody else first.
Yeah. I think we have first to define what are the European values today. And
so we can see the question.
Yeah.
Because the gray zone.
Sorry. You can join if you want.
All right. It doesn't mean that we disagree.
Yes. We're in the gray zone.
Okay.
Everybody in the gray zone?
Yeah. I mean, for me, this requires to answer the previous question.
Absolutely, but the statement is also made in that way, to question indeed, like what does it mean, you know? So anybody else wants to add on it? Yes?
Yeah. Just want to share the thought as it comes now. I don't know if Europe has values, and I'm not interested in any national values. I mean, the last 15, 20 years, we have started thinking about how Eurocentricity have actually made such huge problems in the narratives of so many other countries outside of Europe. So I really question if we need any European values.
But human values?
Yeah.
And would then
Yeah.
a cultural capital help in that? Could that be useful in that, in translating or communicating human values?
Also, adding to the notion of the human values, I would say the artistic values as well. I'm thinking a lot of the notion of the artistic citizenship instead of any national citizenship, in the way that actually we, as people that were using culture as a way of being and becoming, we would actually share these ways with our comrades.
Absolutely. If I use European values, I use the values that have been added in the decree about freedom of press. So, you know, it's like a pact. It's an agreement, a social contract that we have made. So if you think about the European Capital of Culture, would you feel responsible that it has to communicate European values?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think that this is one point that our bid book and our proposal brought much to the light, and was not related that it was very little related to tourism and the touristic development of the city, but it was about, yeah, how the city can be expressed and can communicate with other parts of Europe. And what are the European values? I mean, our approach to what are the European values was mainly that a common ground and a common value is the value of questioning and of searching for things and of not taking anything for granted.
Absolutely.
But this is the only I can think of.
I think that this idea has been evolving throughout the years. As an initial idea of Melina Mercouri, I think that it had put this basics, but then I think it was actually promoting the city and building infrastructure and theaters for many places. And now I think that it's going back to promoting values. I think that it's, you know, an evolving body, you know. It's not something steady.
You want to say something? The last one.
Thank you. So actually I'm in the gray zone here because I cannot reach an agreement between agree and disagree as approaching by defining the tool and the purpose here because I think the tool is the European values because they use this as means, as a pan-European tool, this European Capitals of Culture program. So writing in the bid books, I mean putting exclamation marks and everything. And then once we reach that level, we are on the map, we concentrate even not promoting the city, but promoting the image of the city. So it's about the perceptions, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. That's it? Yes. The game is over. It's fun, huh? It's fun. Thank you. But just the game, just, you know, to go to what I actually want to talk about. It's just to show you how complex it is and how we see things and how we read things, even if you put a simple statement on that it means something else for everybody, and to listen to each other and to know that you can have a dialogue with nuance also, you know, because the gray zone is also between the agree and strongly agree. And to talk about it and allow for different perspectives. I think that's in a playful way, not being defensive, but just trying to explain what you do. But, and this to go to the fact that the world is also a complex place. It's not, there are no simple solutions today. And we can say that the atmosphere, I think, in Europe is changing rapidly and in the world. And it's, I think especially the European Union is much less optimistic and hopeful today. We are not surviving the widespread youth unemployment that ravages most parts of Southern Europe particularly. We are immersed in challenges of migration and identity. And we are seeing as a consequence of these existential political challenges, the rise of certain forms of extremism and populist politics through Europe. And this all while there has been maybe a spaceship discovered. I don't know if you read the news today, Umamama, which is, you know, if we don't even can talk to each other, would be quite a challenge to talk to them. It's a Harvard, NASA thing who saw a rock passing, which they saw already a year ago, and they think really that it's not a rock, but maybe it could be really a spaceship. So I'm very excited about it, but that between brackets. But we can say, I think, that the rhetoric that is currently going on in Europe and which made even the UK leave at this point, and which is very similar to a certain kind of rhetoric that is going on in Hungary or Poland or Croatia or Sweden or Austria or Belgium even, you know, in many parts of Europe today, it's unfortunately much too widespread. But to give some perspective, I think Europe has an ancient set of traditions and history, especially in the areas of migration, of relationships between people and different cultures. And it is almost impossible, I think, to define European identity or to talk about European values, because Europe stands exactly for diversity. Many people have, and cultures have traveled through it through centuries. There is such an important dimension, I think, to the cultural process of festival, and most of all, the cultural processes of international festivals. But the point I want to make is that engagement with other cultures, engagement with other perspectives, other philosophies, other religions is, broadly speaking, the best thing that humanity can offer individual citizens. We are not enlarged by only remaining in our own spheres of interest and understanding. We are enlarged as human beings by experiences of other perspectives. And whereas I have an issue with the word multicultural, because I don't think it goes far enough, and because the implication of multicultural is very much about a certain kind of tolerance, putting up with difference, I think that we all should be thinking about, especially in the days that we are here, in terms of our deliberation, to this idea of the cosmopolitan. This idea that actually we are part of a broader set of human values, set of ideas. We should acknowledge that we are living in a parallel universe and not in hierarchy, where ideas from China or Australia or ideas from Iran or Tunis, you know, the voices which are often not heard because of political challenges, as well as those from Europe, are essential to understand the world we live in today. And networks, of course, play a crucial role in this, and especially on a larger scale, to advocate for the importance of festivals and the values they can translate to their citizens and civil society as a whole. And the network I'm working for, the European Festivals Association, was also one of these networks that was set up after the Second World War, and exactly from this ideological point of view that through creating bridges and through culture and art, something like that could never happen again. It was set up by some 15 festivals in Europe, and also to create a sort of awareness and respect for differences, and the fact that artists and art can play an important role in that, I think. Today, the European Festivals community counts 80 members, not only from Europe, and they have been commissioned a few years ago to initiate a pilot project for the European Parliament to make a label for festivals in Europe, to give actually an overview of the diversity of festivals that exist. And not only to open it up to audiences, but also to create an awareness between peers of what is existing. And what we've seen with this label, that it made actually a huge difference for very small festivals, who all of a sudden had a sort of quality label with which they could address their governments, their municipalities. They got a sort of recognition of their peers. They're traveling around with that now, and it's a sort of visibility that they have. Of course, it's a pilot project, and there are a lot of challenges also related to that, but it is quite a community. So that counts now 700 FA label festivals in Europe of a wide art festivals, of a wide diversity. And on top of that, there is the first global network of festival managers, which results actually from the activities that I'm doing with the Festival Academy and the training programs. And that's a global program. So from that we have 600 festival managers, really the young emerging generation coming from more than 80 countries today. So that's quite a big group of different voices who are in communication with each other, and who all have a platform to act and react from to their citizens and their communities and their audiences. I want to go a bit deeper on the training program at this point, and I'm totally forgetting my PowerPoint. There's a reason for that, because I lost my charger of my computer in Beirut. So I prepared something different. So this is actually the European Festivals Association where they are spread out, so also Azerbaijan, Turkey, Lebanon. And this is this is the community, the FA label. And then the Festival Academy is, I think it's also very important today with the fact that there is such a multitude of festivals, and Jan said it also already earlier on, that festivals are copying each other, or there is no innovation, or to really have a critical reflection on festivals today, why you are doing it, for who, with who. And the program of the Festival Academy really allows, it's a mobile atelier. I will only focus on one of the programs, which is called the Atelier for Young Festival Managers. It's a 7-day program which travels to the world. So we have done editions in Europe, in Asia, in the MENA region, and we've done a first one in Africa. And it's really about standing still and asking you again why you are doing that, but also there's an open call for application. People from all over the world apply, so you get really different perspectives in that. And we did a first edition in Africa, and the reason for that is also that we received a lot of applications from there, but it was quite challenging for people to participate because of visa and financial issues. So we really wanted to move there to give the opportunity to them also, because the idea is to really create a more inclusive global conversation. We've set up for the last edition, for example, a collaboration with the AIÅNÅN network in Sweden, which is a network that supports refugee artists, all people who would normally not have the chance to participate. And I think this inclusiveness for me is really a very important point, because I would like to ask of all the people in the room here sitting, is there anybody of you who feels like a minority? 3, well done. 4. Yeah, and can you maybe shortly say?
In so many different ways.
Yeah.
I'm a part of many different minority groups.
Okay. But it's only, I just want to show, you know, that I think if we talk about inclusiveness, we really have to start acting upon it. And it is way too much that the agendas of things are set without these people in the room. And as the Minister of Culture said also yesterday in our very inspiring speech, we don't want to do it for them, but we want to do it with them. And it's really something to be very aware of. And I'm also in my organization really trying to make that happen and setting up collaborations with several organizations who allow people who would not have the means to be able of that thing, yeah, to be there. So I want to show you, yeah, this is where they are coming from. Not all African countries are added yet, but it's quite extensive. We did it in South Africa, and we planned on that moment already a 2nd edition in Kampala, Uganda, which will take place in 2020. Also to say, like, we're not coming in and we're getting out, but the first one was South Africa because of, yeah, the feasibility, and also to raise awareness amongst the partners to support that project. And I will show you, it was with, I have a video of that, and I want to show you, I will not show the whole video, but it's just to give an impression of what it is.
I loved every bit of it from the first moment. The design of sharing knowledge, the participation, everybody, all inclusive. Everybody at some point had something to say. There was no participant that did not say something at a particular time. And that to me meant a lot. It built our confidence. We got to know the strengths and weaknesses of each of us, and we got to see how to assist everyone in dealing with these issues.
My expectations of doing the atelier was really to meet with like minds from around the world, and that certainly has come true.
It was really great having been asked the question about our dream festival before we arrived here in Johannesburg. So to have that was kind of like a dual conversation that ran alongside my thinking throughout the week.
The world we live in today has no simple solutions. The challenges we face are quite complicated. And to upskill a network of festival leaders who all have a platform to act and react from is something that is needed and necessary and urgent today, so they can also plan their festivals and their programs from a global perspective.
We realize that there's a broader conversation globally around the kinds of questions that festival managers are asking here. And I think festivals often take upon themselves the burden of responding to some pretty deep social and political and educational and artistic challenges. It's really wonderful to be strengthening a network, to be making sure that those conversations aren't stuck in one national context, but actually are part of what's happening to change contexts for art making in the world now.
I think to be able to participate in this kind of a program is so enriching on so many levels. You gain new perspectives, you gain inspiration, but especially you gain a group of new friends. It's 7 days, so that's quite long. It's not a 2-day conference. And what you take home with you is really this feeling of human connections and the possibility to engage with each other and share in each stories and to collaborate afterwards.
Atelier has been such a profound experience, and it's so important for the global community, for South Africa, and I think most importantly, we always get projects coming from Europe and Western and global North that are about benevolence. They always see Africa as a place where we're giving stuff to, you know. And I think what Inga and Laurie and the team have been able to successfully put together is a very circular and democratic space where everyone feels like an equal contributing to a global conversation.
It just made me dream.
Yeah, I will stop it here. Because it's a 7-minute video, so it's a little bit too long, but I think the last thing what he said was very important, you know, that it's like you feel listened to and you have a sort of, we set up the Festival Academy. It's an initiative of the European Festivals Association, but it's really, we set up the organization to have a global image, so it's not Europe coming to teach Africa or something, and we engage people from the global south and the global north to really have the different perspectives present also on the level of the mentors and the speakers, so all the people who are in the group feel represented. And yeah, it's the idea behind it is also that people, you know, if you know somebody from Yemen or you know somebody from Kampala, you know about how they work, that you can act from a better basis of solidarity. To really be aware of the world you live in, and we also give them information in the beginning of what the state of the world is and what the real inequality is and how that is being used by politicians also to polarize different cultures, because that's the next point I want to make. I don't think that culture is also always a positive thing, and the anti-apartheid system in South Africa is the best example of that, how culture was really used to actually segregate people from each other. And I think that's still very, populists are very aware, I think, today of the strength of culture to unite people against each other. And I think for us also that's something to keep always in mind when we are talking about arts and culture, and especially the involvement of politics in this, related also, for example, to festivals as tools for cultural diplomacy, or European capitals of cultures, which are in one way linked also to the politics of the city and whether they really serve the needs of the people living in the cities. I think in the past years the festival scenes really boomed. Everything is a festival today, copies of each other, which challenges actually the very notion of a festival. Which standards safeguard the quality of a good festival? You have food festivals, you have, you know, and can we be as elite to say that the term festivals belongs to the art scene? That's maybe also not a fact, but it's also something to be aware of, I think. Every major city has today its festival, but I hear more and more voices raising that if you really want to do something interesting and experimental still, that people move to the peripheries, like in Amsterdam or in London, or I actually heard it also in Athens, where you have more eager and open audiences, because in the cities, the main cities, the audiences are so filled with everything that they've seen. I think festivals are a very special thing in the fact that they are limited in time and frame and allow also for experiment and risk-taking, and it's a sort of laboratories and a place where people meet. It's not only one performance, but there's a lot going on around it most of the time, which gives a lot of opportunities to engage with your audiences also. And I think it's also very important that a festival is connected to what is going on locally, regionally, nationally, and globally. And in that sense, I think there is not one model for a festival. And also when you develop the festival scene here in Greek, I don't think there is a need to look indeed at the European models, or it might even be more interesting to look at Tunis, or there is so much diversity. Every festival is different, following the place, the duration, the artists, the audience, the community, and the things that are at stake in society at the moment in time. And the funny thing is with these ateliers that many of the participants have addressed it as a sort of festival, because it is indeed 7 days, it is a curated program, it brings people together, and it is very much related to the local context and what is going on there. For example, in Sweden with the refugees and then the upcoming elections, and we always connect it to these issues. And I think the unique thing about festivals is that it allows also for this flexibility to play really to the tune of the moment. But now to come to the Greek festival scenes and the questions that we will be addressing in the next hour, I think. I don't know how much time we have still, but I saw that it was 5, but we started late also. But anyway, when I arrived in Athens, I met with some friends who are working in the scene here. And we tried to define together. I asked them a little bit, what do you think that the strengths are of the Greek scene, art scene? Because we are always so, we easily define ourselves through the obstacles or the challenges that we formulated. And I come from Beirut, where I did a workshop with the Arab Fund for Arts and Culture with people from Palestine and Lebanon and Egypt, and coming from a very challenged region at this time, which is because of the political instability and people, even private funders drawing out of there, and of course the war, the ongoing war in Syria, etc. And it was really great to see how they actually took it as an opportunity to reformulate their context, as to see what their actual strengths are to work from. Anyway, the things we came up with were that there is a lot of talent here, so I thought that's already great to start from. You know, if you wouldn't have artists, there would not be a need for that. Spaces are still affordable, the possibility to experiment and be innovative, that there is a democratic sentiment very present in the art scene, which could be translated to civil society through the work presented. You can challenge me, I'm just saying things that it's a very subjective list, but it's just to start thinking a little bit. The geographic location, the connection to Southern Europe, Turkey, Africa that you have, the landscape, islands and their festivals, residencies in beautiful locations which inspire and motivate people to create. Things happening in the peripheries by young people who are a little bit fed up with Athens and who go and do things outside. And from there, things to be developed or worked on seem to be that sometimes the entrepreneurial spirit is missing. I think also the minister referred a little bit to a passiveness or the elite status of the artist to be challenged, the care for the other in a sort of solidarity, you know, you can make your own artwork, but you can also help as a producer on another's artist's work, like this kind of a spirit where you support each other a little bit in the scene. Combination of creating art and producing art, so it seems that there is quite a lot of training opportunities for actors, etc., but they leave school and there is actually no work or employment for them, and there is also no developed, there are only very few, I think, capacity building programs for producing of art or to really further develop the scene and professionalize the scene. Awareness for governments to invest in the field, but also an awareness of government municipalities' involvement in the artistic programming and the absence of curators. So the importance of having a sort of curation which is independent from political agendas. The issue of gender seemed to be also quite a thing. It seems that currently all state-funded artistic directors are men, and that the program of this year's National Theatre only includes male directors. Galleries would be... That's not true? So you can challenge me, but it's something that I heard that it's quite an issue here, and generally the care for minorities. As said, this is just a random sum of elements, and we can discuss it if it's not an issue or not. But I think it's just to go back to the needs of the things, because many festivals in Europe have actually been set up, or in the world even, by artists because of the need to present work. And I think it's very important. For example, the Avignon Festival, which is one of the most known festivals, was set up by Jean Villard, and he ran it for 17 years, and then he passed it on to Paul Pouot, and then he passed it on actually to an administrator, a young administrator, which was Bernard Fèvre d'Arcier, whose mission was to modernize the festival, who then in turn passed it back on to a duo of artistic directors who put the focus back on the artist by inviting an artist to curate the program with them. And now it's actually run again by an artist, but ironically it's much more traditional as it has been before. And I think it's a very good example, Avignon, of how a festival actually transformed the city, which has become now like, and also the fact that there's now a much more traditional artist leading it again has to do with the political context and the populist and the quite extreme right population living in and around the city, which has made it somebody appointed somebody there again to run it. But Avignon is also a question. Of course, it had a huge impact on the city on a financial level, for the hotels, for tourism, but does it still belong to the people who live there? I worked with an artist, and we did once a sort of laboratory in one of the beautiful spaces, the historical spaces, and some of the audiences, people from the city left because they were so angry that we dared present unfinished work in one of their venues, which they really felt it belonged to them. This as an anecdote. But so what are the needs of the Current Creek festival scene? What are the needs of the artists working here? What are the needs of the audiences, of the communities, both in the cities, the regions, the islands, the needs of the municipalities, government, potential funders from the private sector, and how to align all those? What makes you unique? What is your relevance? What can your impact be? And what kind of a world would you like to live in? Because that's also, as the minister said, festivals can, or art, or a European capital of culture has the potential to create a sort of social cohesion. And she was very optimistically to say, we could create a brand new image or a brand new generation of thinkers and a brand new way of relating to each other. And I think those are all things which you need to consider also. What are your values? Again, going back to ethics, which ones would you not want to compromise at any cost? So this is a starting point. And I think I would like to open up now to the people who have been sitting here for a while. And I think one of the questions is, maybe to consider with every question what would be from your experience and from all what we've heard about the scene here from previous working groups, what would be the action points to take for the Greek festival scene? But maybe Jan, you could say a little bit on how the festival, you talked about it of course before, but Marseille has a huge variety of people, minority groups, invisible people. How do you engage with these? What are your concrete tools or methods to work with them? And how do you have the feeling that the Festival Marseille really impacts on the city and the people that live there? And there's another microphone there. We can maybe approach a little bit to each other again. Did she have to go?
I think one of my starting points in Marseille, and one of my reasons that I wanted to be there and go there was that my analysis of how the festival actually engaged with the city, how the festival mobilized the people in the city, how the festival lived up to its name, Festival de Marseille. My analysis of all of these questions was quite negative. It is definitely a festival that for about 20 years was mainly there to confirm the powers that be, with a project for the city that I think is quite in opposition to what the reality of the city is really asking for. In Marseille, the gap between the reality of its population, its political and social and economic needs, and what the political establishment defines as their goals and objectives, that gap is enormous. And I have to say that the institutional cultural landscape plays quite an affirmative, consensual role when it comes to being on the side of the powers that be. And that is, I would say, the main challenge of the Festival de Marseille in the next few years, how to change that, how to come up with an artistic project that engages in a much directer, deeper way with the reality of the city, without at the same time losing the support completely of the political establishment. And that is not an easy balance to strike. There are several ways in which we try and do that, introducing the whole dimension of creations, and creations with the city, co-creations in which we actively work with citizens of the city of Marseille, whether they are amateur artists or not even, but in every edition we try and have 2 or 3 projects that we work on for an entire year, sometimes with famous international artists like Rimini Protocol or Jérôme Bel, sometimes with local and young artists, but having co-creations in every edition is very important. Before I arrived, the festival didn't have any creations and definitely no co-creations with the city. So that is one level on which we really try and change things, and probably the most important one. But there is also the question of where do we perform, where do we present, which areas, which spaces. For the next edition, one of my priorities is to be very present in the Quartier Nord, in those northern suburbs. That might sound as an easy and evident thing to do, but it is not. One very practical reason being that it is extremely hard to get there. So Marseille is built as and thought and urbanized as a segregated city, even to the extent that there is no public transport connecting the northern suburbs to the center of the city. So if as a festival you want to go there and present work there and not only do it for the locals who live there, well, that takes an entire reflection that goes well beyond the artistic reflection. And then a third level is the level of audiences. Marseille is a city of poor people. of people for whom buying tickets, even if our average price is 13 euros, that is too high a price for many of the people that we want to come and see our shows. So what we've put in place is what we call the charte culture. It's in French, a billetterie solidaire. So what we put together is a small capital of a few 10,000s of euros that we get from a number of private sponsors like Arte, who give us 12,000 euros every year, but also the local prefecture. They all put on the table some money that allows us to sell 2,000 tickets for €1 in every edition. And that is not enough. So in the previous edition, we actually sold 2,400 tickets. So we decided ourselves to finance another 400 tickets at €1. And so we make sure we don't only throw, or we don't only look for the money and then throw the tickets between brackets at the populations in the northern suburbs. We have one person on the team who for an entire year is in dialogue with local associations, youth houses, all kinds of intermediary associations between us and these populations in the Quartier Nord, which are often hard to reach, to make sure that the tickets really get to the people who need them and who are definitely interested, who are cultivated in many ways, but who do not read La Provence or who do not necessarily go on the website of Festival de Marseille, or who do not come to the center of town to see our posters, so they don't really know what we are doing, which is not their problem, it's our problem. And so to make sure that they know and they see the reasons to identify with our work, we have one person on the team that works on that communication for an entire year, and then they do show up. So those are plenty of levels, the co-creations, the spaces and areas. And
it's three very concrete things, I think, which are very useful. Thank you for that. The artistic co-creation with citizens, be present in certain heavy regions, and then a pricing policy, a solidary pricing policy. Great. Maybe Kelly, I was wondering, because you said also yesterday that the idea of the capital of culture is not only for Elefsina, but also to reach out regionally and nationally so that it can have an impact on the whole of Greece, actually, or also on other cities. So I was wondering, with that in mind, I was wondering what could be the impact of Ulysses 2021 on the Greek festival scene and also towards the municipalities. How do you see that? And also maybe on the level of capacity building, because I did not mention it, but we will do an atelier for young festival managers also together in 2021, which I'm really looking forward to. I think it's great to bring people from all over the world here, but yes, I will, yes, and before that in February, but yeah. So yeah, maybe just a perspective of what this could mean concretely also to the Greek festival scene.
I think that the impact that Eleusis can have and the connection that it can have with the other cities is on the level of questioning together our practices and the way we want to develop arts and culture in our cities. So for me, it's a main, for example, with respect to festivals, I think there is a main issue here. Most of Greek cities have festivals, but then if we look at them, we will realize that in most cases, it's the same program that you see in all festivals. So how then the city is being expressed through the festival? How, and on the other hand, I mean, originally and in principle, the festivals are supposed to be mechanisms that serve the artistic world in the one hand and the city and the community in the other. And it's really hard to serve both and to make that, it's a very delicate balance. But I think that we have to see, again, what we mean when we say that we serve the artist. In what ways can we serve the artist? Do we really serve the artists when we just invite them to perform one night in our city and that's the connection, that the whole connection that they have with the city? Or we should try to develop new ways of connecting the artists with the city, providing them with time and space and knowledge and connections in the city in order to get to know the city, work with it, and create works. And I think that there are also artists here, and it would be interesting to hear also from the artist's point of view what they need from a festival and how they would feel that a festival serves their need and helps them really to develop and to develop their work, to develop as personalities, to develop an audience and an understanding for their work. I mean, I'm not sure when the artists, and I'm not talking about the well-known artists, but you know, the artists that are not that well-known or popular, how much and in what way do we create understanding for their world, for their language, for their universe in our cities and in our communities? And this is just the one part that refers to the artist, and the other part has to do with the city. So on the other hand, how does the festival, when we say that the festival serves the city, what does this mean? And there we have to see, as the minister was saying yesterday, what is the city? The city is not one unified thing, it's many different communities, it's many different neighborhoods. How does the festival benefit, how do all these neighborhoods benefit from a festival? Do they bring work in these neighborhoods in order that every part of the city benefits? How do we connect, and how does the different communities of the city benefit from it? And yeah, I think that these are the main challenges, that the main questions that Greek festivals, and especially regional festivals in the city, which is the major, you know, cultural offering of the city to its citizens, have to think about and start a discussion on that and imagine different forms and different ways of operating for our festivals. Another major, and a second also major issue that relates to that has to do with the fact that many Greek festivals don't have a curated program. So all these questions that we are never put on the table. So how do we bring together a program then?
Are there any artists in the room here, actually, who have some recommendations? Yeah, that would be great. Or a question, or no, you want to say something new. But I'm just thinking in the way always also to really try to formulate some advices, I think, but just.
I would say also, if you excuse me, not advices, but I would like very much to hear from the artists their needs with respect to the festivals, what they would expect the festival to give them, and how would the festival today empower their work and their career.
Sorry, I was thinking about Marseille before, just because that came up while you were talking. I used to live in Marseille, and after graduating from art school, most of the artists that live in Marseille have to teach. And because we are young artists, they send us to the Quartier Nord immediately. So maybe another way to get to the Quartier Nord is to go through the schools. Because we all live in the center and go to Quartier Nord to teach. And we all have the young students who are so curious and who so much want to get out of the Quartier Nord and to learn more. And the city has stopped a lot of the things that were happening in the Panier or in things like that because they were getting too chaotic for them to run them. So maybe that's an additional idea of how to get to a different audience.
For one thing, I understand that as an artist, you don't necessarily have a very set need throughout your life. Needs change. So you cannot just come and say, this is the need of the artist, generally speaking. I understand that if somebody invites you, then you truly would like to be presented the best way possible, which means take care of the work and the needs of the work to make it happen to be presented the best way possible. So that has to do with production, etc. But if a festival decides to produce or co-produce, then you expect them again to help facilitate these needs. Because sometimes the artist just has a need to just create a piece. And then there are some other approaches where you have the opportunity to visit a space. Let's say I've had certain experiences in Lemnos and here in Elefsina, where I've worked with community and we've created stuff. So that covers another kind of field. But this is not like a fixed dogma that artists should always do this or that. It's a discussion. It's an ongoing discussion on what is your need at this moment.
Maybe what you're saying is that there should be more a dialogue with the artists to identify together individually always the needs, and that it's more about the process, or that the focus should lie more on the process than on the results only.
Yes.
Or start there.
Yes. But also, if you focus on the process, then you do take care of the result. So for sure, yes, I agree.
Is there anybody else in the audience? Because originally I was thinking to go in groups, but I think it's great. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, a festival from a festival is a different story, depending the city, depending on the extended extension of the festival. And then we have actually projects that deal with the community, or artists that primarily deal with community issues, and we have artists that deal with other individually with issues that concern them in a personal or political level. So definitely I feel that any sort of residency, short or longer term, is helpful for the city and for the artists to produce or conceive and produce work. It's not only, I mean, a production of work outside of a curatorial, I will use the word frame. Curatorial frame means though a discussion, not just a frame that comes and implants to the artist. So discussion with curators and artists for any kind of exhibition, I think, is important. And the production of the work has to do with what the needs of everything, the artist, the community, and the festival. It's not, I don't see separate entities, but rather connected entities. We can come up with a zillion of ideas, and we implement some of them if we have money or if we don't have money, or, you know, some of the ideas are huge, some of the ideas are smaller. So I think when you connect three elements, the arts, the curatorial, and the festival, I mean, I'm putting this together, and the city or the frame where this work is going to be displayed or exhibited, then you might have a win-win situation.
Yeah, I hear a lot dialogue, but maybe somebody of you wants to react also on it, if there's.
I would like to be given the possibility to interact more with the artists of the festival in terms of time and in terms of work. Normally, when you participate in a festival as an artist, you don't have the chance to meet the other artists outside the night cafe or the restaurant or some coffee break. I've been in many festivals in Europe as a guest performance. I have never seen another piece. It's absolutely impossible. If I meet another artist, it's always on the corridor. So I think we have to create a space and a frame for artists to be together, because this will take also the work one step further and maybe bridge it better.
I expect from a festival, first to have a public from a normal public, citizens, but also to have some programmators from other countries, so it's an opportunity for Greek people especially to show their work and to connect with other countries, that we are a bit closed from other festivals because we are further in a corner of Europe.
So mainly to promote your works.
Yes,
So
to other festivals from other countries. But not only to be programmators, because a performance needs also a real public to be alive.
Yeah, and may I? Thank you. And it was, for me it's a bit strange. I want to, I feel I need to say that now. We had reactions from three artists, and none of you referred to the audience or to the local community. You all referred to your work, saying we need to take care of our work and have good production, to create space to interact between us, the artistic world, and to promote our works. But there was no... Yeah, but not as a need. That's what I didn't hear for... Maybe.
I just wanted to highlight what Evripidis was just saying, that there are different needs by different artists at different moments in their lives. There are different festivals with different frameworks, and it's impossible to cover everything and everybody and every need from community, from the festival agenda, from the artist agenda. So each time you have to have a focus and a selection and a decision about why are you doing what you are doing. But even if the artist in the room or other artists in the world does not refer to the community or the audience, maybe that's something that everybody has to take into account. Maybe sometimes overstressing this need has also problems from the community part and from the artist part. What I'm trying to say is that things are not always good or always bad. We sometimes want to do things, but the conditions are different or the needs are different, and that's okay. So what I'm trying to say is that if artists do not need to have, they don't have in their priorities to communicate with an audience at this moment, we have to take it into account. Maybe another artist wants to have that. It's not necessary everybody to communicate with everybody.
Is it somebody else's priority, or is it the task of the festivals, you think, rather than that of the artist?
What I'm trying to say is that
it's an interesting discussion, because I understand that even coming out of whatever school or training, and then you just suddenly you're an artist and you have to create your own work. And then, you know, you're looking for funding, you're looking for collaborators, you're looking for this reality to happen. And then there are these organizations or circumstances, and some funding may be there. So whichever policymakers decide to draw the attention to, whether that may be Syria or whether that may be community work, artists are looking, while they're still fresh coming out of whatever institution or environment they're coming out of, to try to discover kind of their identity, their voice, etc. So you will be drawn more or less towards where the funding is or the interest is or what the festival is suggesting. So if the festival is suggesting working with community, you're going to jump in and put in a proposal. And if the festival is suggesting immigrants, you're going to jump in perhaps there. And that's not necessarily your interest. So I think that has to be considered, that if you do put out there, as cultural institutions do plans, that means you will draw a fund to that, and we will draw the means for that to happen. Artists will be drawn like bees to honey to that, not necessarily because that's what they want and that's their voice, because that comes a little bit later perhaps, but because this can happen, and you are looking for the opportunity to make your work happen. So I think that's a very interesting point that we're discussing right now.
Absolutely. It means that also funding defines the agenda of the artist.
And whatever facilitates, not only funding, whatever facilitates, even the mode, the fashion, what is in fashion makes you...
Yeah. Working with Syrian refugees, for example.
I have to disagree mostly with everything. Strongly. Probably was not understood before. But definitely, I spoke about three elements: the artist, the curator, in any form this curatorial frame might be, a curatorial team might be, and the venue, and the audience. I never worked in my life because I didn't want people to see my work. I never worked in my life because I want to see my work in a mirror. I always work because I would like to share it with other people, other peers, and not only artists, peers in life. And I never worked because I wanted to be a part of the space and place that I, at the time, at any given time, found myself in. Any city, any country, anywhere. So I just wanted to make myself clear on that, and because I heard something about that the artists are jumping in every possible way. If there is money or if there is an opportunity, again, I have to strongly disagree. As a practicing artist for many, many years now, that I never jumped into any situation that happens to have money or exposure and being untruth to my practice. And B, this is something that I mentioned before, win-win situation, only if the artist, the curatorial, any curatorial discussion, and the public audience, community, can discuss things, it comes together, and then you can have a win-win situation. Thank you.
Do you want to react to that?
Actually, yeah, maybe I missed it the last time, but for me, and what I actually said before was that for me it was strange to hear 3 reactions from the artists that were all referring to the conditions of production and the promotion of the work, but they had no reference to the audience, to the community that this work is addressed in any form, so that interaction that is supposed to be in the beginning, because the works are not created just to be created, they are created, I guess, because we have the need to interact with other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was an artistic director in Ikaria, it's an island at the Aegean Sea. It was called Icarus Festival for Dialogue Between Cultures and created with the municipalities of Ikaria. And what we did, I mean, it's just very simple practice, but in Ikaria there are a lot of feasts, like, you know, almost every 2-3 days. So what we were doing, we created a festival exactly for intercultural dialogue. So we had groups that played, usually they were from one country, but played music from another country. This was like our very simple principle. We started from music and then we moved to other arts. And what we did was inviting them 1 or 2 days before and have them participate actually in the feasts, in the local feasts, play with the local musicians and, you know, sort of become a part of the community, play their music as well. If scheduling was, you know, helping to that, but it was something very simple, you know, it all depends from the conditions and from, you know, where you're doing the festival and what are the needs of the community. So.
Maybe it says also something about the needs of the artists at this point in Greece, where you focus, where you're so concerned about getting opportunities to work, you know, that the next step is. And I think also when you create as an artist, probably you always have an audience in mind. I think it's something that sometimes it's not made explicit because you're anyway thinking about who you're creating for. I saw somebody there who wanted to say something also. Yeah, sorry, but he was, yeah, no? Then, yeah, okay.
I agree with Kelly's remark, and thank you for reminding me this, because my main work is to the community or in the community. So anyway, I am positioned to work with the community as an artist. Maybe the fact that I remarked the need of being with other artists inside the festival means that if we also understand as artists that we are a community inside the festival, then this can multiply our energy, impact, invitation, or whatever everybody does. So I would like to express the feeling of loneliness when you work in a festival. Either you work with the community or not. If we understand and experience that we are also a community inside the festival, maybe this can make things larger.
Yeah.
Two people have the energy of 4, yeah. Or 4 people have the energy of 20.
To act together as a sort of in solidarity, yeah.
Or interact, or bridge the work, or be together.
Can you, yeah. It will, yeah, okay.
Καλησπέρα σε όλους. Λέγομαι Γιάννης Ανδρέου. Είμαι προϊστάμενος στο τμήμα Περιφερειακής Πολιτιστικής Πολιτικής και Φεστιβάλ στο Υπουργείο Πολιτισμού. Άκουσα με προσοχή όλα τα Άκουσα με προσοχή όλες τις παρατηρήσεις και τις επισημάνσεις από τους ομιλητές και έχω να πω και εγώ μερικά πράγματα για την εικόνα των ελληνικών φεστιβάλ στην επικράτεια. Η πολιτιστική παραγωγή είναι πλούσια, ποικίλη και ποιοτική σε πολλά σημεία της Ελλάδος. Τα φεστιβάλ αποτελούν σημεία αναφοράς με την έννοια ότι είναι προσπάθειες ανθρώπων με πολύ μεράκι και πολύ αγάπη για αυτό που κάνουν. Από εκεί και πέρα τα οικονομικά προβλήματα, η οικονομική συγκυρία που βιώνουμε και κάποια άλλα θεσμικά ή προβλήματα νοοτροπίας δημιουργούν κάποια προβλήματα. Αν κοιτάξουμε όλο το χάρτη, θα δούμε ότι δεν υπάρχει νομός και πόλη, τώρα η μεγάλη ή η μικρή, που να μην έχει ένα φεστιβάλ που να αποτελεί σημείο αναφοράς. Και αυτό νομίζω ότι σημαίνει πολλά. Από εκεί και πέρα υπάρχουν κάποιες αδυναμίες που νομίζω μπορούμε να τις επισημάνουμε και να τις συζητήσουμε. Με ποιο τρόπο το φεστιβάλ θα μπορούσε να προσδιορίσει την πόλη και να δείξει την ταυτότητά της και να αναδείξει τους καλλιτέχνες κτλ. Καταρχάς, τα περισσότερα δεν εντάσσονται σε ένα σοβαρό επιχειρησιακό και στρατηγικό σχεδιασμό από τους Δήμους. Με την έννοια ότι δεν έχουν μια προοπτική, δεν έχουν μια στόχευση, δεν έχουν ένα όραμα, ούτως ώστε να μπορέσουμε να μιλήσουμε σοβαρά, να κάνουμε μεθοδικά βήματα σε κάθε επίπεδο. Αυτό για μένα είναι το ένα κομμάτι. Το άλλο που θα μπορούσε να βοηθήσει πάρα πολύ θα ήταν η δικτύωση των φεστιβάλ. Με δύο μοντέλα, ας το πούμε έτσι. Το ένα είναι τα διαδημοτικά δίκτυα πολιτισμού, τα οποία δημιουργούν κάθε καλοκαίρι ένα φεστιβάλ, διοργανώνουν, αλλά με ένα συγκεκριμένο τρόπο. Στην ουσία προβάλλουν την καλλιτεχνική παραγωγή, χωρίς αυτό να είναι με αυτό, αλλά με ένα στατικό τρόπο που δεν βοηθάει στην εξέλιξη της καλλιτεχνικής παρουσίασης. Μέσα από ένα διαδημοτικό δίκτυο θα μπορούσε να διασφαλιστεί η σταθερότητα και η ποιότητα, θα μπορούσε να γίνει διάλογος για το πώς μπορούν να πάνε λίγο παραπέρα, πώς μπορούν να συνδεθούν με άλλους τομείς της οικονομίας. Γιατί προηγουμένως άκουσα ένα ερώτημα για τον τουρισμό. Αμφιβάλλω πολύ αν συμμετέχουν τουρίστες στα φεστιβάλ τα ελληνικά. Ή είναι πολύ μικρός ο αριθμός, θεωρώ. Και μέσα από αυτόν τον τρόπο μπορούν να βοηθήσουν και τη χρηματοδότησή τους, τη βιωσιμότητά τους. Γιατί εξασφαλίζεται οικονομία κλίμακας, εξασφαλίζουν συνέργειες, συνεργασίες, δυνατότητα συμμετοχής σε ευρωπαϊκά προγράμματα, δυνατότητα προβολής στο εξωτερικό μέσα από μια ψηφιακή πλατφόρμα που θα μπορούσαν να δημιουργήσουν και ανάπτυξη συνεργασιών με άλλους τομείς της οικονομίας, κυρίως με τη δημιουργική οικονομία που έχει να κάνει με την ένταξη του πολιτισμού στην επιχειρηματικότητα. Αυτό είναι το ένα κομμάτι που, όπως και να το κάνουμε, υπάρχει και για μένα η λύση είναι να εξελιχθεί και όχι να αλλάξει. Το άλλο είναι από φεστιβάλ που γίνονται ιδιωτικά ή από ομάδες ή από καλλιτέχνες κτλ. Τα οποία είναι εξίσου πολύ αξιόλογα και τα οποία θα μπορούσαν να γίνουν και αυτά να ενταχθούν σε ένα δίκτυο το οποίο θα βοηθούσε και τους καλλιτέχνες να συνεργαστούν μεταξύ τους ή να βρουν λύσεις για το πώς θα προωθηθούν και πώς θα αναδειχθούν και πώς θα προβληθούν. Θα πω ένα μικρό παράδειγμα που έχει κάνει πολύ εντύπωση πέρσι και πρόπερσι. Στο νομό Αργολίδας, ένα φεστιβάλ δρόμοι του πολιτισμού της Αργολίδας έκαναν το εξής. Το φεστιβάλ έκανε πρόσκληση εκδήλωση ενδιαφέροντος για συμμετοχή όλων των πολιτικών φορέων του νομού. Που σημαίνει αυτό ότι όλοι οι μικροί πολιτιστικοί φορείς, σύλλογοι, ομάδες κτλ. Παρουσιάστηκαν, έδειξαν τη δουλειά τους και από εκεί πέρα έγινε μια αξιολόγηση και μέσα από αυτή την αξιολόγηση προέκυψε το φεστιβάλ. Άρα μιλάμε για μια ανάδειξη του τοπικού πολιτιστικού δυναμικού και την αξιοποίηση των καλλιτεχνών του. Αν αυτό έγινε και φέτος με ακόμα καλύτερο τρόπο. Και κέρδισε και την εμπιστοσύνη της περιφέρειας η οποία το χρηματοδοτεί. Ανάλογες προσπάθειες υπάρχουν και αλλού, με μικρότερα ή μεγαλύτερα δίκτυα. Θεωρώ ότι αυτές οι πιο σημαντικές κινήσεις, θεσμικές τουλάχιστον και από την πλευρά του Υπουργείου Πολιτισμού που εκπροσωπώ, και πιστεύω ότι υπάρχουν δυνατότητες, εάν πάνω απ' όλα αναπτυχθεί ένα κλίμα συνεργατικότητας, διάθεση συνεργατικότητας, ανάπτυξη συνεργασιών με καλή προαίρεση.
I will, yeah.
Thank you. But can I react in Greek, if you don't mind? Okay, thank you. Λοιπόν, τώρα θα πάω από την άλλη πλευρά. Λοιπόν, και συμφωνώ το θέμα, αλλά νομίζω ότι το θέμα της στρατηγικής, αναφερθήκατε στο όραμα των φεστιβάλ. Και το όραμα των φεστιβάλ δεν μπορεί ποτέ να είναι αποκομμένο από τις σχέσεις τους με τους καλλιτέχνες. Και το πρόβλημα των ελληνικών φεστιβάλ στην περιφέρεια είναι ότι δεν παράγουν καινούργιες δουλειές, δεν κάνουν commission σε καλλιτέχνες, δεν προσκαλούν καλλιτέχνες να δουλέψουν μέσα στην πόλη τους σε μια άλλη βάση μακροχρόνια, ώστε να μπορέσει να δημιουργήσει ο καλλιτέχνης ένα έργο που αφορά αυτή την πόλη, να δημιουργήσει ένα έργο καινούριο. Anyway, οπότε, νομίζω ότι η κουβέντα για τα φεστιβάλ και η κουβέντα της αλλαγής θα πρέπει να ξεκινήσει από εκεί, από το κατά πόσον μπορούν τα φεστιβάλ πια και τα περιφερειακά, πέρα από το Φεστιβάλ Αθηνών, να θυμίσουμε δε ότι μέχρι πριν 10-15 χρόνια και το Φεστιβάλ Αθηνών έτσι λειτουργούσε. Δηλαδή, ούτε καν το Φεστιβάλ Αθηνών δεν έκανε αναθέσεις σε καλλιτέχνες. Απλά έφερνε κάποιες δουλειές μεγάλες και τις παρουσίαζε στο Ηρώδειο. Όπως και σήμερα οι πόλεις φέρνουν κάποιες δουλειές τις πιο γνωστές, ας πούμε, τις παραστάσεις της Επιδαύρου και κάποιες συναυλίες και τις παρουσιάζουν στις πόλεις τους. Αν αυτό το μοντέλο δεν αλλάξει, αν δεν ξεκινήσουν τα φεστιβάλ να δουλεύουν ουσιαστικά με τους καλλιτέχνες, δεν νομίζω ότι μπορούμε να ελπίζουμε σε οποιαδήποτε αλλαγή.
Ωραία. Άρα πριν είπαμε ότι θέλουμε να δουλέψουμε με το community και ο άνθρωπος είπε ότι έκανε η Αργολίδα έκκληση σε όλους τους κλάδους του πολιτισμού και οι άνθρωποι και έγινε το φεστιβάλ. Και τώρα ερχόμαστε και τους λέμε, ναι, αλλά ξεχάσατε τους καλλιτέχνες.
Ναι, γιατί βεβαίως...
Επομένως, αυτό θέλω να πω ότι κάπως... Δηλαδή...
Βεβαίως, γιατί το ζητούμενο νομίζω δεν είναι να μετατρέψουμε την τέχνη σε community work, πρέπει πάντα να διατηρούμε το στοιχείο της καλλιτεχνικής δημιουργίας και της σύγχρονης καλλιτεχνικής δημιουργίας και της πιο καινοτόμου καλλιτεχνικής δημιουργίας, δηλαδή το να αναπτυχθεί μια πόλη, το να γίνει το φεστιβάλ, το σημείο στο οποίο η πόλη διαμορφώνει ταυτότητα και την προβάλλει σε όλο τον κόσμο, στο συλλογικό φαντασιακό, απαιτεί την σύνδεση με την ουσία της τέχνης και του καλλιτέχνη, με τους πιο προωθημένους καλλιτέχνες. Δεν είναι απλά να μαζέψουμε ό,τι γίνεται εδώ, γιατί μπορεί το ό,τι γίνεται εδώ να είναι ερασιτεχνικό, να είναι... Πρέπει ταυτόχρονα να δούμε τι γίνεται παντού και να το συνδέσουμε με αυτό που γίνεται εδώ. Αυτή είναι η δική μου προσωπική...
Sorry, but I would like... because I'm hearing myself. No. I just want to, because Jan, you said also earlier, like in working with communities, it's sometimes a challenge artistically. So maybe you can react once and then from your experience, just to open it up also, and then we go back to you also. If you can say something on that, what your challenges have been from your experience, because you did quite a lot also in Brussels before, no?
What I find interesting in the discussion is that it gives me the feeling that it is really important that we don't turn it into an this or that discussion. It is not the artists or the communities as if they are in opposition. I think the future for festivals is to be shared spaces of artistic and civic creation and invention. And I am very clear about the fact that artists need to be at the heart of that, need to have autonomy, need to be free. That is the starting point. And at the same time, I'm deeply convinced that we need artistic directors or curators that at the same time need to be modest and see themselves as mediators, but that at the same time also have the responsibility and ambition to maximize what the possibilities can be. And so I will never have a conversation with an artist that starts with the imposition or the choice that I impose of having to work with a community. I will try and be open, I will listen, and then my role might be to try and suggest exchanges, bridges, collaborations with a city, with communities in a city, or I might suggest contents that the artist herself or himself hasn't thought of, hasn't heard about, hasn't come across yet, but that might really be sources of inspiration and that might offer contents, that might offer perspectives that can be helpful. So it is really about modesty and responsibility at the same time. It is about artistic autonomy and civic and social duty and transformation at the same time. And it is all about the deep conviction that tomorrow's future and the future of our cities and our societies cannot be built without artists. We cannot leave that work only to politicians and policy makers. But artists can also not do it totally on their own. So what I'm convinced of is that we need these platforms in society where artists get all the support, the freedom, but also the material and the responsibility that allows them to make their very specific contribution to what tomorrow's city and society is going to be. And for me, that is all about imagination, that is all about openness, about freedom, and about setting in motion encounters and processes of which we do not know what the outcome will be. And for me, that is, for example, the difference between artistic work and educational work. In education, we set objectives. You go to school, you go to university, and you know what the results, what the objectives are that you need to reach in order to then play a certain role in society. I think that is exactly what we don't know with artistic work. It is about invention, it is about imagination, it is about new perspectives, new models, and I think we desperately need these platforms. I think festivals can be these platforms in cities and societies. I think artists need to be at the heart of that, not politicians or policy makers. And I think we also very much need mediators between artistic practices and contexts in order for the exchanges to really take place in the deepest possible way.
Je vais peut-être vous parler en français, comme ça vous comprendrez mieux ce que je vais dire par là. Ένα λεπτό, θα το πω και ελληνικά σε ένα λεπτό, γιατί το καταλάβει καλύτερα. Je pense que ça n'existe pas un festival qui n'a pas la société avec lui. C'est-à-dire, on parle toujours des artistes. Dans notre festival, on invite, même que c'est un festival documentaire et cinéma, donc on a des audiences, il y a toujours comment ça s'appelle, des fêtes où on a des artistes grecs et étrangers qui viennent du monde entier parce qu'on les invite. Donc il y a des choses qui se passent tous les jours et donc les artistes y prennent part et la société prend part. Puisque moi je pense que pour développer une ville, pour développer aussi un festival, il faut que tout le monde y prenne part dans cette fête-là. Je ne pense pas que si vous avez le même, je ne sais pas si vous avez la même avis, mais là, ils sont en train de couper le festival en morceaux. Un festival, il peut faire plusieurs différentes choses, et plusieurs fêtes culturelles, si on veut. Dans le même festival, on peut avoir aussi une fête de musique, en même temps une audience dans un autre endroit, et en même temps, on peut avoir, par exemple, quelque chose comme la cuisine crétoise qui prend part comme exposition ailleurs. Alors je ne comprends pas ce changement que certains gens y pensent avec le festival. Un festival, c'est dans l'esprit, c'est quelque chose quand même une fête large, et surtout pour la communauté aussi.
Sorry, but there are so many people who are sitting here and cannot follow, so I suggest
you want to talk in English or in Greek? What is better?
Yes, and short, because I would like us to go in groups actually still to, like to go very concretely now on making a few recommendations that we bring back together, and we still have 20 minutes, so if we divide up 10 minutes in groups or something, and originally we were 4 people, but we will do 3 groups now. Jan more from the perspective of festivals, Kelly more from the perspective of municipalities and the ECOC, and I would be more on the perspective of capacity building, but really to make some concrete recommendations that can be used also afterwards to change the scene, or because you're all here, so it's good to work on that. So maybe choose a group that you would like to. One group with Jan, which would be more really on the level of festivals, so maybe for many of the artists that it's interesting, I think. Kelly more from the level of municipalities. What are the recommendations we need to make to government on the level of how to work with these ECOCs and things like that? And me from the perspective of capacity building from the floor, like training the skills that we need to professionalize the scene that could add on to making a better context for everybody to work in, I think. Like a critical reflection on the practice, not necessarily the practice itself. So maybe, I don't know how we do this now, but we can maybe sit everybody, a few here on the stage, or yeah, we have approximately, I would say, 10 minutes approximately, to just, and then we come back and we can say to each other maybe still what the recommendations would be. So you can, I don't know, maybe just come to the person and decide where you sit in the room, and then, yes, one group on the stage. Here. Yeah, voilà, simple. Thank you. Does every group have a reporter? I've been told to close, so. No, but they came and tell me now that I had to close. Rania came to say you have to close. That's why okay. No, because generally I'm not actually, but it's just that I don't have my phone with me, so I got confused.
No, it's 6:30 now.
We still have 10 minutes now.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Like, we just take the time for this now. But it helps to get them back here. So what have you arrived at? Where is the other microphone, actually? There. You want to start? Or Jan? Very clear 10 action points.
Well, we have 2.5.
Great.
First point, there is a real need for a better, finer, higher quality, more permanent exchange, open, curious dialogue and conversation between artists and curators or artistic directors. The curiosity needs to be at the heart of that. There seems to be the feeling that there is not enough of a dialogue and that the dialogue is not open and curious in the sense that even though curators seem to be listening, many things seem to be pre-decided already. So how to make sure that there is an openness and a curiosity on both sides that can lead to new things that could not be invented by one or the other, but that demand really the reciprocal exchange. And then the very concrete suggestion that maybe festivals or that internet platforms could be established that allow for a permanent exchange between artists and curators, between festivals among themselves, because they don't seem to be speaking enough either. But I think the real question is also how to organize live platforms, because I'm sure that the live exchange is crucial. I think in Western Europe, in Flanders, there are many interfaces, networks that allow for this to happen on quite a permanent basis. So how to bring that here? Second suggestion, to think more freely, more imaginatively about the production conditions that artists have to work in. It all seems to be very formatted, pre-decided. Again, it's always the same process. So how can artistic directors create safe environments that allow artists to think more freely, to not only be focused on the creation of the next masterpiece, but how can artistic directors create a safe environment, create a safe accompaniment, create a safe process of exchange and feedback that allows the artist to think outside of the box, outside of the production conditions that lead to always the same kind of formatted result. And then the third point, and we had just started on that, was about this very difficult relationship between art and social work. They need each other, and at the same time they're really not the same thing. Artists are not social workers. So what is it that the artist can exactly bring to work with communities in difficult areas, with specific groups in a city? What does the artist specifically bring to that kind of work that the social worker does not bring, that the educational worker does not bring? And how can we create, I think, there also safe environments for that to happen? But we didn't find any quick solutions there. So just a question.
It's very, very good. Yeah, voilà, we can continue the work. So.
No, I said that we can continue tomorrow on these questions on the working group. But tonight, okay, but tomorrow also on the working group on the role of the artistic director.
I'll be there.
Yeah. So what we came up to, it's 7 points and 2 questions. One is there was a general consensus, I think, on the thing that the regional festivals and city festivals in Greece need to have an artistic director. We also need interventions at policy level, meaning a mapping and a network between the different festivals. The festivals need to have a strategic planning, a strategy. They need to engage in productions and co-productions. Also, another point that was brought up was the development of volunteers networks and volunteer clubs for the festivals. Also, that maybe we need also trials or pilot festivals until we get to a new model of operation. Or another question, another thing that was brought in was the fact that the festival happens once a year in a specific time, and what happens in between the rest of the year. So maybe, and how the festival could have a program that would run throughout the year and somehow peak the period of the festival, not leaving the city without an activity the rest of the year. So how could the festival run the whole year and then have a peak during? And then we said also the thing that festivals, there are festivals, you know, there is the Tomato Festival, the Olive Tree Festival, the Kalamata Dance Festival, and all, so that we need to have a discussion on what is a festival and what it is not a festival. And also the fact that, and apart from the olive and the tomato, etc., it's also the question here in Greece of a whole season running, a whole summer called the festival. Is that a festival? Or how does it relate to the season running throughout the summer? So the difference between a summer season and a festival. And another point, what it means, a city festival and a festival that goes into a city and is accommodated in, and is hosted into a city. What is the difference, and what are the pros and cons of its model?
Okay. Yeah, I tried to convince one person of my group to do a reporting, actually, but I failed. But we actually did not stay on education. We moved to audience halfway, but you will notice. But one of the first things that was said is that the role of arts people might have to be interchangeable sometimes, and that there's maybe a need in artist education also to include the introduction to other roles as producing or financing your work. So if you enter the market, you're not, you are aware of these things to be able also to effectively produce your work, not necessarily that you have to keep on doing that always, but that it would be quite of helpful to have that education of a very young age, also in the sense that some people you just don't reach because they've never been to the theater, or so to include it really in primary schools, culture and arts, and to be connected to that, or to go to see things. The next thing was actually to go to those people who are not included instead of expecting them to come to you. So maybe also to go to the streets, or to go to new spaces, or also on that level, the need to create new spaces or transform old spaces into places where people would feel maybe more welcome than in traditional places or things like that. Then a bit similar to you, the need for festivals not to be limited to the 10 days, but to have possibilities to also stay in contact with the communities and their audiences through the year. And then we thought of a sort of Airbnb of bigger institutes who could actually help and serve that purpose, because somebody gave an example of the Onassis Foundation that they do that sometimes, that they open up their space for festivals to do something there or to do some residencies. So that's kind of practical thing that can be maybe more explored. And then the high need of networking between festivals, and not coming from municipalities, but really informal networking, and also internationally, which would really be helpful to create a more supported scene, I think. So thank you, everybody. I think we arrived at quite some work for Kelly. Yes, great. I also wrote quite a lot down. I think also one of the things I noticed really is the need for dialogue on all levels, between artists, between artists and curators, between artists and potential people who could see your show or things like that. Creation of an artist community, also the solidarity between you, which can make you stronger, I think. And I really like your shared spaces of artistic and civic creation, you know, like the. So I think if we start to see it also like that and collaborate on that level, it would be great. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you.